She wore postage stamps as makeup, strapped tin cans to her chest, and once walked into a government office with a cake on her head. Elsa von Freytag-Loringhoven was a living, breathing performance, and yet history has largely forgotten her. And on top of that, there's rumors that one of the most famous artworks of the 20th century may have been stolen from her. She was outrageous, brilliant, and not always appreciated in her time. But today, we're going to take a closer look at her life, her art, and why she got almost erased from history. But before we start, please take a second and subscribe to our channel. This way you never miss an art-marinated video from us. Elsa was born Else Hildegard Plötz in 1874 in Swinemünde, Germany, now Świnoujście, Poland. From the very beginning, she didn't fit into society's expectations. Her father was violent, her home was unstable, and she quickly realized that traditional life was not for her. By her early teens, she was writing radical poetry and smoking, both scandalous for a young woman at the time. But her true rebellion began when she ran away from home as a teenager. She climbed out of a window using a laundry line and made her way to Berlin. There she studied at the Königliche Kunstschule, but her education was cut short when her mother attempted suicide. Now back home, Elsa had only one goal: to escape again. And she did, through art. She soon found work as a model and a variety performer at the famous Wintergarten Theatre, Berlin's grand stage for cabaret and spectacle. Her striking looks and fearless personality made her unforgettable. During this period, she developed a fascination with theatrical self-presentation, an obsession that would later influence her persona in the Dada movement. She honed her ability to shock and entertain, traits that would define her entire career. Elsa was never meant for a conventional life, and that included her relationships. Her first marriage was to August Endel, a Jugendstil architect in Munich. She took his name and became Elsa Endel, but the relationship was doomed. Endel was emotionally distant, uninterested in intimacy, and Elsa quickly lost interest. Then came Felix Paul Grave, a German poet and con artist. Their relationship was passionate and chaotic. In a desperate attempt to escape his debts, Grave faked his own death and fled to North America. Elsa followed him in 1910, only to be abandoned by him. Stranded in the US, Elsa found herself alone, until she met Baron Leopold Karl Friedrich Freytag-Loringhoven, that is. Leopold was certainly a real German baron, but unlike the aristocratic heritage his title suggests, this particular baron was a baron in name only. He had no wealth, no land, and no real standing in aristocratic circles. He was younger than Elsa, and when they married in 1913, he was already struggling both financially and socially. Unlike her previous husbands, who were deeply involved in the arts or literature, Leopold had no artistic career or intellectual reputation. It's really unclear why Elsa married him. Perhaps for the dramatic weight of a noble title, or simply as a practical arrangement. What is clear is that he did not offer her stability. He lacked the financial resources to support her, and whatever connections he may have had in Europe did not extend to Elsa. Their relationship was brief, and when World War I broke out, Leopold left the US to fight for Germany. It was the last decision he ever made. He was captured as a prisoner of war and never returned. Elsa kept the von Freytag-Loringhoven name, not as a mark of devotion, but as an artistic identity. The Baroness became part of her legend, a persona that commanded attention even when the man who gave her the title had long been forgotten. What's remarkable is how Elsa continually reinvented herself, using marriage not as a form of submission, but as a tool to climb social and artistic circles. Each marriage brought her into new environments, and she absorbed the influences around her, from Jugend architecture to underground poetry. By the time Elsa arrived in New York in 1913, she had already lived several lives, but it was here that she truly became an avant-garde icon. She moved to Greenwich Village, a hub for radical artists, poets, and thinkers. She quickly became involved in the Dada movement, a rebellious art movement that rejected tradition, logic, and even the idea of beauty itself. Elsa turned herself into a living artwork. She wore unbelievable outfits. What do you say about tin cans as a bra, spoons as earrings, postage stamps as makeup, a bird cage, sometimes with a live bird, as a hat? Her performances blurred the line between art and life. She published provocative poetry in The Little Review, the same magazine that had James Joyce's Ulysses as a serial. One of her most famous works was God, created in 1917, a sculpture made from industrial plumbing parts, turning everyday objects into art, years before Duchamp's famous ready-mades. She performed spontaneous street acts, disrupting public spaces with absurd monologues, bizarre gestures, and shocking costumes. These performances were ahead of their time, laying the groundwork for performance art decades later. Now, let's talk about the biggest controversy in modern art. Did Elsa von Freytag-Loringhoven actually create fountain? In 1917, an artwork was submitted to an independent exhibition in New York, a porcelain urinal turned on its back and signed Armat. This piece is considered one of the most important works in modern art. For decades, Marcel Duchamp was credited as its creator. But then a letter from Duchamp to his sister was discovered, revealing that a female friend submitted the urinal. Many believed that the friend was Elsa. Elsa's artistic style was about reclaiming discarded objects, transforming them into shocking statements about art and society. A urinal reimagined as a sculpture fits perfectly to her approach. The truth still remains a mystery, even though Duchamp is still claimed to be the artist. We can recommend you take a closer look at this mystery in our other video about the fountain. See the link in the description. By the 1920s, Elsa's life was unraveling. The art world was moving on and she was left behind. She lived in poverty, selling newspapers on the streets. She received support from Juna Barnes, Ernest Hemingway, and Peggy Guggenheim, but she still barely got by. 1926, she secured a visa to Paris, hoping for a fresh start. She lived in a rundown hotel with her 3 dogs, scraping by with occasional modeling work. And like these circumstances weren't enough, Elsa claimed she misunderstood her visa restrictions, saying she could not work at all and was expelled from France. Instead of leaving, she went into hiding, living in extreme poverty. Her tragic final days were spent wandering the streets, often seen muttering to herself, still wearing her extravagant outfits. In December 1927, she was found dead from a gas leak in her apartment. Thank you for following along at our exploration of the fascinating life and art of Elsa von Freytag-Loringhoven. Please hit that subscribe button for more videos, and why not explore the next recommended video we did a while ago to further explore the Dada movement and the group of artists Elsa was part of at the beginning of last century.